Hare Krishna, Prabhupada Jai, Hare Rama Sankirtan Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Bhagavad-gita as it is, chapter 2, text 46, chapter title is Contents of the Gita Summarized, or text 45. Traigunya Visaya Veda Nishtay Gunyo Bhavarjuna Nirdvanda Nitya Sattvastu Niryogaksema Atmavan Traigunya pertaining to the three modes of material nature. Visaya on the subject matter. Veda, Vedic literatures. Nistraigunya, transcendental to the three modes of material nature. Bhava, be. Arjuna, O Arjuna. Nirdanda, without duality. Nitya Sattvasta, in a pure state of spiritual existence. Niryogaksema, free from ideas of gain and protection. Atmavan, established in the self. The Vedas deal mainly with the subject of the three modes of material nature. O Arjuna, become transcendental to these modes. Be free from all dualities and from all anxieties for gain and safety, and be established in the self. Purport. All material activities involve actions and reactions in the three modes of material nature. They are meant for fruitive results which cause bondage in the material world. The Vedas deal mostly with fruitive activities to gradually elevate the general public from the field of sense gratification to position on the transcendental plane. Arjuna, as a student and friend of Lord Krishna, is advised to raise himself to the transcendental position of Vedanta philosophy, where in the beginning there is Brahma Jigyasa, or questions on the supreme transcendence. All the living entities who are in the material world are struggling very hard for existence. For them the Lord, after creation of the material world, gave the Vedic wisdom advising how to live and get rid of the material entanglement. When the activities for sense gratification, namely the karma kanda chapter, are finished, then the chance for spiritual realization is offered in the form of the Upanishads, which are part of different Vedas, as Bhagavad-gita is a part of the fifth Veda, namely the Mahabharata. The Upanishads mark the beginning of transcendental life. As long as the material body exists, there are actions and reactions in the material modes. One has to learn tolerance in the face of dualities, such as happiness and distress, or cold and warmth, and by tolerating such dualities, become free from anxieties regarding gain and loss. This transcendental position is achieved in full Krishna consciousness when one is fully dependent on the goodwill of Krishna. Om Gyatimarandasya Ginandana Sadakaya Shakshurunmirikamina Tasmai Shri Gurave Shri Chaitanya-manovistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamaya Dadati Swapadantikam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. The modes of material nature are each very different. There's a great distinction between the mode of ignorance and the mode of passion, and again, a great distinction between the mode of goodness. One who is in the mode of ignorance is engaged in destructive activities, either self-destructive or destructive to the environment, living in ignorance, in dirt, living in everything is detrimental. Everything that person does is just negative energy. One who is in the mode of passion is making all kinds of arrangements to enjoy the material energy. And as such, likes to make very pleasant arrangements. Everything nice, everything beautiful, but there is no happiness in the end. Short-term happiness, but no lasting happiness because there is no fulfillment. That is the mode of passion. In the mode of goodness, one is simply aware of reality as it is. One sees in the mode of goodness the material world is a temporary place. And thus, in the mode of goodness, one will be inclined to be tolerant and to not make too many arrangements in the material world. We can look at some countries in Europe, for example. Switzerland is a beautiful country. Everything is just right in order. There are nice white picket fences all in the right place, etc. There are boxes with flowers under the windows. Everything is just completely spick and span. There is nothing that's not clean, nothing that's not first class, nothing that's not nicely arranged in Switzerland. That's the country. Now some might think that that's an indication of the mode of goodness, but we would say no, it's an indication of the mode of passion. Because everything is arranged for sense gratification. In the mode of goodness, one might not go as far as so many decorations. One might just say, all right, we tolerate something. Because in the mode of goodness, one understands this material world is simply, it's a temporary domain. So why spend so much time trying to make the material world a comfortable place? Clean, yes. Some order, yes. But then also simple, also tolerating in the mode of goodness. Not unnecessarily changing all the material energy into a better shape. That's the mode of passion. The shape in which we find things is not okay, so we have to make millions and zillions of arrangements to make it better. Passion. In goodness, yes, we improve things, but still are also able to maintain simplicity. And thus stay closer to nature and simply have a spirit of acceptance of the arrangement of the Supreme Lord. Then it is pointed out that most of the Vedic literature is dealing with the Traigunya, with the three modes of material nature. And a gradual path of elevating oneself to the higher mode of nature. to the mode of goodness. But that in itself is no guarantee, because the mode of goodness is simply another material arrangement. It is one of the three gunas. The translation of the word guna is sometimes quality and other times that which binds. So in that way we can see that one becomes bound also by the mode of goodness. Therefore, ultimately the mode of goodness is also not good enough. But the mode of goodness is more parallel to the transcendental reality. There are many principles in the mode of goodness that are relevant on the spiritual platform as well. Therefore, the mode of goodness is a natural stepping stone towards the transcendental platform. The mode of goodness is a situation where one begins to cultivate a spirit of acting according to prescribed duty. And when one is able to act according to prescribed duty, at least then one can minimize suffering in the material world, and one can remain on a path of progress. Whereas in the mode of passion, where are we going? Like Prabhupada said, here in New York, imitating the sounds of cars, whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Cars flying by at neck-breaking speed, but not going anywhere, not making any progress. That's the mode of passion. Not making any progress. But in the mode of goodness, there is progress. However, that progress can also be checked. And one can again go down, because yasyasti bhakti bhagavati kinchana sarve gunais tata samasati sara hara tasyo manorati nasati davadovahi. That one can be taken away by the manorat, by the chariot of the mind, even if one has all good qualities of the mode of goodness, all good qualities of the demigods. But if one is not fixed on the transcendental platform, then again one will go down, one will not alter. So although for a long time we are on the path of progress, then we'll see that we'll again come down to the lower modes of nature. Therefore, in Varna Ashram, the system of Varna Ashram is aimed at gradually bringing people to the mode of goodness. It is said the Sudra community is in the mode of ignorance, the Vaishya community combined ignorance and passion, the Kshatriya community in passion, and the Brahminical community in goodness. But all these lower platforms are simply in a program of gradual purification and then raising people to the mode of goodness. So the Vedas spend a lot of time with that, in raising people to the mode of goodness. But because then when one comes to the platform of the mode of goodness, one is meant to take up spiritual life. But if one doesn't take up spiritual life, one will again go down. Therefore it said, Atapumbi Advicha Shrestha Varnashram Vibhaga Sa. And it is said, Nat Padiyat Yatira Tim Shrama Evadi Kevalam, that we can take a position according to the 4 varnas and ashrams, but all that is simply a waste of time. Srama evi kevalam, if we are not taking up devotional service. Therefore, We are interested in devotional service per se. And the mode of goodness is a support structure. It is like our safety net. We are walking on the transcendental cord, high up, and we remain on that cord, but below the cord we have the net of intricate regulations and principles and injunctions, prohibitions and positive injunctions that keep us in the mode of goodness and that will catch us from going down to the gross central platform where we just follow the dictates of minds and senses. So in that way, the mode of goodness is a net that keeps us from coming down on the ground, coming down to the bodily platform, but it's not enough. It's not enough. We must really remain on the platform of pure devotional service. And that is our objective, and nothing else. In this way, we are not interested in anything but devotional service. Kichit kevalaya bhaktya vasudeva parayana. Only interested in devotional service. Only interested in becoming absorbed in Krishna. Only Krishna. Nothing else. Other demigods, no time, no need. Only Krishna. Other forms of Narayan, no need. Only Krishna. Only Krishna. And nothing else. Any other deities? No, not required. But what about some puja? Yes, nice, but not required. What about any shraddha? Is it allowed? Sometimes if Prabhupada would ask, is it allowed? Then his answer usually was, it's not required. It's like the Western mentality is to look at the rules and regulations and where are the limits. And then within these limits, we can basically do what we want. It's authorized. It's within the limits. But Prabhupada had a different approach. His approach was, it's what is required. What is required to attain the ultimate goal. Therefore, sometimes when devotees would ask, is this and this allowed? And Prabhupada might say, it's not required. Yes. Everything narrows down to that point. What is required to go back to Godhead? And what else could we bring in our life? Simply that. Life is so short. And in illusion, we make so many plans and we take it so serious and we have so many desires that we still wish to fulfill, and then it's already approaching the end. It goes so quick, very, very quick. Especially from middle age till old age. That goes very fast. And then simply what counts is what we invest in our relationship with Krishna. That is the one thing. I like to remember how in the Czech Republic I have two Czechs sitting right opposite of me, so I'm thinking a little bit of Czech. And we were in a summer camp, and so there was a canteen and everyone was going there for prasadam, and I was on some diet, so I was having prasadam somewhere else. So I walked away, and suddenly I hear Namaste, Namaste, and I go, wrong song. It's supposed to be Sarira Vijayam. What's going on? Wrong song. So I walked back and had a look. There was a man lying on the ground, flapping, all grey in the face, and apparently some sort of heart attack. And so this is a forest camp. It's a bit out of the way. And yeah, here was this man. And so we're all chanting Hare Krishna. And yes, someone is doing something, pumping on his chest, and then then a helicopter arrives with some professionals, and they come running, and they got like a machine with electric shocks and trying to revive him, right? And there's like 300 devotees praying, let him die. All of us were praying, let him die. Because we all thought, if he dies now, in the middle of all these devotees in the kirtan, that would be the best. If they take him away in the helicopter, he'll die in a hospital bed, if he makes it that far. Anyway, our prayers were answered, and he died right there in the middle of the devotees, chanting. So after that, it was very auspicious, right? It was really like, it wasn't like a disaster, if you are in an assembly somewhere and suddenly someone dies in the middle of the whole thing, it becomes a little gloomy, and sort of for the rest of the day there's a shadow over the day kind of experience. But it wasn't like that. It was rather really auspicious, and we all felt really light about it. It's actually like, and we started to go, who was this man actually? And it's like, did somebody know him? And then one devotee said, yeah, he was one of my regular customers on book distribution for years. He bought all kinds of books from me. And then he bought Srimad Bhagavatam some last year. And then I met him recently, and he said, I finished that, I read all that, do you have any other books? And I did sell him some other books. And then I said, why don't you come to our summer camp, which is what he did. And it was his first day, and he did the whole morning program, and he went around Tulsi, everything. He chanted japa with the devotees for the first time, really. And then he made it through breakfast, and his seminars after that, and at lunch, he just croaked, right? And it was really auspicious, actually, if you think about it. The man had completed the Bhagavatam. He picked up chanting, walked around Tulsi, burned up some sins, Yani Kani Chapapani, and the whole thing. And then just left. And I think, this man had somehow or other in his life invested in the eternal, in eternal benefit. Right? He didn't know much about Krishna consciousness, at least not about the movement and the culture of the movement, but he had read the books and he had read the Bhagavatam. And obviously to a point where he had developed faith. So not only did he read the Bhagavatam, but he had enough faith to come to the camp and to chant and to just surrender to the whole thing. In other words, it sounded like he was ready. He was just ready to turn to Krishna. And so Krishna took him and said, this man lived a very auspicious life, actually. Very auspicious. Very nice. So in this way, we appreciate that wherever there is transcendental activity, that will transform everything. And that will create faith. Now that I'm telling stories about what created faith, I'll tell you one more story. I was in Mayapur, and whenever I'm in Mayapur, I like to be on a program really early to bed and really, really, really early to rise. I mean, like early, and chant a lot of rounds, and you're going there for rejuvenation. Right? So I was up very early, and I was chanting very early, and then I encountered someone else who was already up before me. So I'm looking at my watch, going up before me. Wow, that was early, and chanting. Yeah, no problem. and chanting and chanting. And so finally Mangalarti came and he went through all that. And then after, he was still chanting. Later, I came in the temple and he was still chanting. Now, this man, he was not dressed like a devotee. Rather, he was dressed like Salvador Dali. You know, he had a beret, he had a little pointed beard, and like a two-pointed mustache. So I thought he was a painter. And I asked him if he was, and sure enough, he was a painter. Painter. He was a painter. Oh yes, he was. So anyway, and for the rest, he was chanting all day and going to all the artis in the temple, all of them, from morning to night. So this was going on for about a week, and it started to puzzle my mind. So one day I went up to him and I said, "Who are you? Are you a demigod?" And he said, "Maybe." Yeah. Because how can anybody do that? How can you do that? Chant all day, and like from in the night, right? Chant in the night, chant all day, go to all the artis. I mean, being up chanting again really, really early. How many hours is he sleeping and just chanting and chanting? I mean, where did he get that power, that focus? Who has that? So it was extraordinary. And then one day, he gave me a little self-made cartoon. Right? I mean, like some series, you know, since he was an artist. And then, it basically, the story was, I saw that old man in 1967 in San Francisco. I saw him, and his followers said, but I kept a safe distance. And that was it, right? And well, it was clear. He kept a safe distance, but not safe enough. Right? Because even from a distance, he developed faith. He developed faith in Prabhupada. And that faith in Prabhupada had matured, and now you could see, all right, Salvador, you know, whatever the outfit was, but he was chanting like a mature Vaishnava. I mean, not anybody can chant like that, right? There was maturity there. That faith had matured in him, but now he had that focus. So yes, this is really the nature of transcendence. Engaging in transcendental activity and then developing faith. And once we develop faith in Krishna consciousness, where we actually begin to believe this is true and this is the only thing you can do with your life, then we have the strength to do things. But if we're not sure, in Chaitanya Charitamrita there is that definition of faith. It says Shraddha Sabda Vishwas Kai Sudrida Nischay Krishna Mukti Korda Savakam Krita Hare. It says the firm Shraddha is the firm faith that by performing devotional service all good will come. The living being, if you look at faith, the living being by nature is Anandamaya Vyasat, by nature pleasure seeking. Therefore, wherever we think that pleasure can be found, that is where our faith will go. If you think it's money, then your faith is in money and you'll spend a lot of time for money. And whatever you think will bring you happiness, that's where your faith will be, and then your energy will go there. So if our faith is with Prabhupada, if our faith is with Srimad Bhagavatam, if our faith is with transcendental knowledge, then we think that's where, by following it and living according to these scriptures, that's where our happiness will be. Then we can follow it. If our faith is mixed, we think, yes, there's happiness in the Bhagavatam, but there's also faith in material activities, there's also happiness there, then we'll go up and down. And then, so at one point, one has to have exclusive faith that all happiness will come from devotional service and not from anywhere else. And it is at that stage that we can really break through. That is nistha. And nistha is really the madhyamadikari quality. Kanistha is the one who is going between material activity, material sense gratification, and spiritual life, and always up and down. But then at nistha, the madhyamadikari, saying, no, I have no faith in material life. I have just no faith in it. I have faith in Krishna. And even if sometimes I feel if my senses are attracted, I still have no faith in them. Due to old habits, the senses may become attracted. But if one has no faith, a young man may become attracted to a young girl, or a young girl to some man. That may be. But do we have faith in it? Another mundane relationship, it's like a mundane relationship. What's going to happen there? Love, Valentine's Day, and balloons, and just happiness on the beach, and in a little apartment. Maharaj told me about the dinks, dual income and no kids and lots of money. Right? What can I say? Trying to squeeze out a little happiness. But if you have no faith in that, just say, no, that's not it. My real happiness is with Krishna and with devotional service. Then one can say no, even if the senses are attracted. Then one can easily say no. If one has. So it has to come to that all our faith is with Krishna. Then we can rise above the three modes of material nature to the transcendental platform. Now any questions, any comments? Commentario. Drink water, that usually works. Yeah, you were first.
What if the faith is not...
Slightly louder.
What if the faith is not in the actual... the last thing second. But the faith is not about the relationship, but about building a relationship to build a relationship with Krishna together.
Yeah. Maybe we cannot say goodbye to the world, turn around and say, Krishna, here am I, and I'll never think of anything but you. Maybe we'll also appreciate the material world, and maybe we also have needs in the material world, and these needs we combine with spiritual life. Yeah. That's fine. We can do. But of course, it can be troublesome. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta is telling the story of a man who was walking in the foothills of the Himalayas, and he's walking uphill. It's not a mountain yet, it's just a path that goes uphill. So after a while, he's getting really tired, thinking, oh, this walking, I wish I had a horse. And lo and behold, right there in the field, there was a horse. He's thinking, wow, this is a divine arrangement. I gotta buy this horse. He went, bought the horse for an arm and a leg, but what was divine horse after all. Then he had the horse. But as he tried to mount the horse, that horse would not move. No way. Then a little foal popped out. And he said, wow, my lucky day, 2 for the price of 1. But then, after he tried to mount the horse again and start riding, but still that horse wouldn't move an inch because the little foal wasn't ready to move. So the mare wouldn't go. So finally he said, what to do? I can't wait for that little horse to grow up. So in the end, he put the little horse on his shoulders, the foal carrying it, walking, and then the big horse was following right behind. So one man saw him like this. What are you doing? Carrying that little horse up the mountain, and the other one's following you. What are you doing? He said, oh, it's my day, it's a day and a half. He said, I bought this horse, I spent a lot of money on it, and now then this foal popped out, and now I'm, can't wait for it to grow up, so I'm carrying it up the hill. He said, why don't you, if this horse is not of use to you, why don't you just leave them behind? No, I can't do that. I invested a lot of money in them. So this is the risk, you take on all these material things, and then you've invested a lot of energy in them. And then you get attached to all your energy. And in this way, we tolerate a lot of unhappiness from things. And that actually doesn't help us. So we're looking for things, material things, that can help us on the spiritual path. And some material things can help us on the spiritual path, give us support. A nice peaceful place to live helps us in spiritual life. Friendly people who are also spiritually inclined, that helps. But where do you find all that? You think you found the friendly person in spiritual life, and two years down the road, he's like, he drops it all, he starts smoking dope, and you're doing, what am I doing with this guy? Too many stories like that. That's why I'm happy alone. And it's just no risk, no worries. That's the thing. But it's all, as long as it's good for Krishna, and it takes you there. Have it all, whatever you wish. It's over. The time's up, huh? Okay.
But maybe it doesn't matter.
I don't know if it matters. You tell. Anyway, as you like. You're in charge. I'm just a guest. I can stop. Thank you very much. Bhagavad-gita.